Number one way to know a real guru from a fake. Hindu scriptures are not mythology. Namaste. I'm Pulkit Mathur, founding trustee of the Spiritual Bee, and in this video we are going to go through two interesting stories based upon which we shall answer two important questions. Number one, how do we know whether a particular guru is genuine or not? Is there a test we can apply? Because today there is an epidemic of fake gurus who have turned spirituality into a crime syndicate of abuse, rape and racketeering. So what is the one solid test that we can apply to distinguish a real guru from a fake? Number two, are Hindu scriptures really mythology? Because the word mythology means something which is false, a misguided belief in imaginary gods and beings which do not exist in reality. So are our Vedantic scriptures such as the Puranas, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana really mythology? In this video, we will answer both these questions through the medium of two interesting stories. Our first story is from the book Face to Face with Sri Ramana Maharshi, and it highlights the incredible spiritual powers that a God-realized sage such as the Maharshi possessed. Once a large number of people unexpectedly came to the ashram of Sri Ramana Maharshi, and they being hungry needed to be provided lunch. One of the ashram cooks went to the Maharshi and said, "We are very worried because there isn't enough food." Ramana Maharshi replied, "Don't worry, there will be enough." When the people were all seated in the dining hall, Sri Ramana looked at almost each one of them before beginning his meal. Even before people started eating their lunch, most began to feel full. So each one ate very little, and consequently what had been prepared became more than enough to feed all. Now what is really interesting is that this incident regarding Sri Ramana Maharishi's ability to satisfy the hunger of many is quite similar to another incident which is found noted in the Mahabharata. One sage Durvasa, who was famous for his bad temper, visited Duryodhana. Duryodhana, knowing the sage's irritable nature, went out of his way to make Durvasa happy by looking after the sage and his disciples' every need and comfort. Durvasa was pleased with Duryodhana's devoted service and asked him, "Do you have a wish that I can fulfill?" Duryodhana, being a terribly wicked person who took great delight in seeing others suffer, replied, "I would be delighted, O sage, if you and your team of 10,000 disciples would visit my cousin brothers the Pandavas who are living in the forest so that they too can receive your blessings." Duryodhana of course had himself driven the Pandavas into the forest after grabbing their kingdom by deceit. But he was still not happy. He wanted to see the Pandavas suffer even more. So he hatched this cunning plan. He knew fully well that the Pandavas had not the means to look after 10,000 people, and so he purposely asked the hot-tempered sage Durvasa to visit them so that Durvasa would get upset by the Pandavas' poor hospitality and curse them, and Duryodhana would be delighted to no end. But unfortunately for Duryodhana, his plan failed entirely. What happened was that when the sage Durvasa landed up in the forest, Draupadi, the Pandava's wife, who had not the means to feed 10,000 people, prayed to Lord Krishna for help. Lord Krishna immediately appeared before her and asked her to fetch the pot in which she had cooked her last meal. At the bottom of this pot, Sri Krishna found a single grain of rice still stuck, and this he ate with great relish, saying, "May this one grain of rice satisfy the hunger of the Lord who dwells as the soul in all living beings. And upon this Supreme Lord being satisfied, may all these living beings too be satisfied." The minute Sri Krishna uttered these words, Durvasa and his disciples began to feel extremely full. So much so that they felt that their stomachs would burst if they were to eat even one more bite. And apologizing to the Pandavas for the inconvenience caused, they went back without eating anything. In this way, Lord Krishna saved the Pandavas from being cursed by Durvasa. So we can immediately see how similar this story from the Mahabharata is to the incident in Sri Ramana Maharishi's life. The two stories show that Sri Ramana possessed the same power to satisfy the hunger of many at a mere will, just as Sri Krishna did. And this in fact is the truth regarding genuine God-realized sages. They possess spiritual powers which match those noted in the scriptures. Now we may ask, why is this so? There is actually a very good reason for this similarity in powers. The reason is that once a sage attains to God realization, as a natural consequence of reaching that state, he or she automatically acquires many incredible spiritual powers. And these are the very same powers which the rishis who wrote the scriptures, as well as the personalities such as Sri Rama and Krishna, which are discussed in the scriptures, all possessed on account of their God-realized state. Another point to note is that not only do the spiritual powers of God-realized sages match those which are mentioned in the scriptures, but their experiences and teachings also align with the scriptures. This is again because God-realized sages have witnessed and experienced the same cosmic realities as the rishis who composed the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Tantras, the Mahabharata and other scriptures. To understand this point better, consider the example of an ancient trekker who journeyed deep into the Himalayas where no one else had ever been and discovers for the first time Gomukh, the source of the Ganga river. He describes it in a book. 5,000 years later, another trekker travels to the same spot and also describes the same. Will the descriptions of both trekkers match? Yes, they will, because they both observed the same reality. What's more, even the instructions that both trekkers give to other enthusiasts on how to reach Gomukh, what fitness level to attain, what precautions to take while ascending the mountains, which wild vegetables to survive on, etc., even these instructions of both trekkers will match because they both have undertaken the same journey to the same destination. The same truth holds for the ancient as well as the modern sages who have trekked up to the highest peak of God consciousness. Having made the journey to the same destination, the teachings and experiences of the modern sages will naturally be consistent with those of the ancient rishis of the scriptures. Now, having understood this key fact, we can easily see that one of the most crucial ways in which we can distinguish a real guru from a fake is by checking if a particular guru's teachings and yogic experiences match up with the spiritual truths which are recorded in the scriptures. This is the one sound test of genuineness we can apply. As a matter of fact, when the learned tantric scholar Bhairavi Brahmani wanted to prove to the world that Sri Ramakrishna was not only a God-realized sage, but he was in fact an avatar, she turned to the scriptures and verified for herself that the spiritual experiences which Sri Ramakrishna described to her, as well as her own observations regarding his emotional states, regarding his physical symptoms of dwelling in samadhi, and regarding his spiritual powers, all these matched up with what was noted in the scriptures. She even prescribed certain remedies to Sri Ramakrishna to cure certain physical ailments such as an intense burning sensation that he was suffering from on account of remaining immersed in samadhi for an extended period of time. These remedies were written down in the scriptures and had been used by the avatars Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Radha, who was the divine companion of Sri Krishna. When the Bhairavi prescribed them to Sri Ramakrishna, his problems resolved. This further strengthened Bhairavi's conviction that Sri Ramakrishna was indeed an avatar. What's more, the Bhairavi Brahmani even put forward her conclusions along with the scriptural proofs before the scrutiny of two learned Pandits of that time. The first was Vaishnav Charan, who was a scholar of the Vaishnava scriptures, and Pandit Gauri, who was well versed in the Tantric scriptures. Both learned Pandits examined the scriptural evidence and agreed with Bhairavi's conclusion that Sri Ramakrishna was indeed an avatar. So the scriptures are the single most important test of genuineness that we must keep in mind. Therefore, before people set out in active search of a guru, they must familiarize themselves with the real Vedanta teachings of the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Gita, the Tantras and other scriptures. And only after they have equipped themselves with the right knowledge will their search become easier and they will avoid falling into the clutches of impostors and fake gurus who are out to abuse their trust. The second point worth noting is that our scriptures are not mythology. The term mythology means a collection of myths, where the word myth refers to a widely held false belief or idea, a misrepresentation of the truth. Our scriptures such as the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Puranas and the Tantras on the other hand are the very embodiments of the highest and the profoundest spiritual truths which permeate this cosmos. They are not a collection of falsely concocted tales of gods and beings who are imaginary and who have no existence in reality as is alleged by the word mythology. Nor are the scriptures a collection of mistaken beliefs which an ancient people with a supposedly lower intellect and lacking in scientific and rational thought dreamed up of in order to explain certain natural phenomena. Hindu scriptures, on the other hand, contain profound spiritual truths which are many a times purposely wrapped up inside enigmatic stories so that the principles can be easily understood by even a common person. The thing to understand about the stories which are found in the Puranas, in the Mahabharata and in the Ramayana is that every element of the story may or may not be literally true. Many a times the stories are symbolic representations of deeper cosmic truths which are creatively expressed through captivating images and tales. Vishnu sleeping on the snake Ananta and Lakshmi pressing his feet is one example of such symbolism, which captures within it the birth of the universe. Other times the stories either represent actual historical facts or they are built around a central historical fact. Sometimes the stories detail truths of the subtle and causal realms, and at other times they are just stories which are meant to highlight a particular spiritual principle. So to paint the entire mass of Hindu scriptures with the broad brush of mythology is deeply wrong, because this terminology discredits the profound cosmic, spiritual and moral truths that these texts and their stories showcase. And finally, the last thing to note is that not only must we make it an absolute firm point to read our scriptures such as the Upanishads, the Gita, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, but we must also read the books concerning the life and teachings of genuine rishis such as Sri Ramana Maharshi, Swami Vivekananda, Pandit Sri Ram Sharma Acharya, Sri Aurobindo and others whose pictures you are seeing on your screen. The books of these rishis are perfectly aligned with the scriptures and they explain the difficult concepts of the scriptures in an easy to understand manner. Their books are in fact nothing but commentaries on the scriptures. Regular reading of spiritual literature is in fact called swadhyay or self-refinement, and it is an extremely important step on the path of sadhana. Both the scriptures as well as the books of these rishis contain incidents which develop bhakti or devotion in the minds of the sadhaks, and they also contain many valuable teachings which sadhaks can utilize to introspect and cleanse their own hearts and minds of the bad qualities which obstruct their elevation to a higher consciousness. Another way you can do daily swadhyaya in today's busy times is by reading the articles posted on the spiritualbee.com and also by joining the Spiritual Bee's Daily Quotes broadcast on WhatsApp and Telegram. Through one daily quote per day, you can benefit from the Vedantic thoughts of our great rishis and use their teachings for Atma Parishkar or inner self-refinement. So do make this attempt at Swadhyay, and with this thought let me end this video and we shall meet again in the next one. Take care and goodbye.